What if we could go back to a time when things were simpler, where every mundane thing held the potential to become something magical? When I was little, I used to have an absurd imagination that turned my house into an amusement park of wonders. My balcony railing, the bow of the Titanic. My headboard, the peak of a snowy mountain. An enchanted cave under my desk. Sometimes I still daydream about those long afternoons where I forgot to nap and to procrastinate. Where did that magic go? When did I become someone who chooses the safety of straight lines and practical monochromes? Is that what growing up is all about? Welcome to episode 2 of my bedroom studio makeover. In part 1 of the series, I talked about why we attach value to our physical possessions and why we mustn't save our nice things for a special occasion, as every day calls for a dose of everyday magic. In this episode, I'm transforming my balcony. I'd been fantasizing about having my own balcony for ages so that I could pretend to be Juliet and sigh dramatically under a moonlit sky. But the view outside is less than romantic, and ever since we moved into the house, that balcony has been sitting neglected, collecting dust and pigeon droppings. That wouldn't have stopped little me though. So earlier this year, I decided to finally turn it into an extension of my room and a space that I'm actually excited to be in. You can choose the value you attach to things, and if you want, any space can hold special meaning. Around the time of writing this, I watched Studio Ghibli's From Up on Poppy Hill. Directed by Goro Miyazaki, this coming-of-age film explores adolescence through the story of a school clubhouse. Called the Latin Quarters, this building had been used by generations of students to form little student clubs in philosophy, astronomy, a setting that served their escapist fantasies where they could be pretend adults, dip their toes into the world of adulthood without actually committing to anything. On the surface, it's an old, crumbling building, but once you get to know it, you fall in love with its eccentricities and quirky charm. This is 1963 though, the year before the Tokyo Olympics and a time of restless change and development in Japan. Out with the old and outdated. The authorities want to demolish the property and build a sleek, new, modern structure in its place. Erase all traces of wartime Japan and build a new society on the ruins of the old. Change is good, but is all change progress? Tradition collides with transition as the students resist this authoritarian decision, clinging onto this world that they have built for themselves on the great ideals of the past. The clubhouse is not a dilapidated shack. To them, it's an indelible part of their identity. In a sense, the state of the building is a metaphor for its occupants, a generation hovering between childhood and an undetermined adulthood. Adolescence is always a difficult phase of life. It's the time when you need to come to terms with the fact that the real world is not as you might have seen in games. You might need to let go of some traits in order to fit in better and even thrive. But you need to do it in a way that honors your roots, your core identity. In that spirit, I'm being conscious about my choices with this balcony, giving love again to neglected objects that have been in the family for long. This cross-stitched artwork made by my mother years ago. These brass items that I stole from my grandmother's house. This corner shelf and the carved wooden table that we've had for the longest time but left behind to rot in the old house for some reason. A few years back, I might have discarded these items saying that they didn't match my aesthetic. My aesthetic that was built on Pinterest boards. That was actually just the result of suppression. But I'm ready to bring color back into my life. Ready to let loose those silly childish fancies that had been locked away. We contain within ourselves a version of all the people we've ever been, and they all need to coexist in this moment. We couldn't have been who we are now without all the things that we were before. I think we never lose our core self that we were as kids. It's just a matter of finding it within ourselves again. Some people do, some might forget how. As it turns out, growing up is learning to be a child again, just in a new and improved way. From Up on Poppy Hill has an optimistic ending as the students ultimately manage to save the clubhouse. They convince the adults that it holds value still, that all it needed was a thorough cleaning and restoration, not demolition. The movie's theme of saving the old while embracing the future urged me to think about these questions. What can we afford to change or let go of, while what needs to stay to ensure we don't lose our essence? As you go about your life, maybe try to stop every once in a while to ask yourself this. In this moment, are you honoring little you and all the other past versions of you? Or are you just making decisions based on someone else's version of right?